Hello everyone, featuring today's first video. We're doing the March month-ahead forecast, today's first video. So we'll have a look at CFS V2 and the Bayesian Climate Centre models to see what they're showing for the month ahead for March. We'll also have a review of February, and at the end we'll have a sneak peek for April as well. So quite a bit to cram in today's first video. Later on we'll have a look at weather for the next week to 10 days. Before I get on with the March month ahead forecast though, just to say about the ads that Gaz up, it says links to articles on the page, tab a browse, which is click through links. You can help us page website. Thanks so much to do that. Also video ads both pages, which own content. When you watch them, you can close them back up again. It does help to pay for gas weapons. So the central temperature for March came. We haven't got the UK-wide statistics yet, but it has been a very mild month, I think, across all parts of the country. Provincially, we were still standing at 6.3 on the 27th, but we know actually the final number for February was 6.1. So been a very substantially milder than average month, around 2.5 degrees above average, and I'm not sure that really ties in all that well with gas weather's March forecast. We predicted they probably would be a bit on the mild and average side, but we thought the models, because they were very mild when we did the February month-ahead forecast, we thought the models were probably going a bit over the top with that mild signal. Actually, it turns out they wasn't. It has been exceptionally mild February indeed. In terms of precipitation, we said it would probably be a wetter month. Not desperately wet, but wetter than we've had it. I think that came off quite well, actually. February was a more unsettled month compared to the months preceding it. Not desperately wet by any means, but certainly more unsettled, especially later on. We predicted that there'd probably be quite a cold spell sometime around the middle part of the month. The wind did get into the east early on in the month, but it didn't really set in, and it wasn't a particularly severely cold or very cold easterly either. So that's the reason that it's come out milder than expected, really. We thought there'd be quite a potent cold period in an otherwise probably fairly mild month, and that cold period would be enough to offset the milder weather to some degree. But of course, we only had a few days of east winds. They weren't particularly cold in any case, and that's the reason we've ended up with a very mild month. So part of the forecast was okay, part of it didn't go all that well, a bit of a mixed bag for gas weather's February month-ahead forecast. We'll go on now and have a look at March. So this is CFS V2 700, bit of our height anomaly for March, and we've got ridging above average height sitting to the north of us around Iceland and Greenland with low pressure or a trough underneath it. Now that could be quite a coldish scenario, but because the trough is centred in the Atlantic as opposed to being to the east of us, it means that we're still keeping the flow coming in off the Atlantic. So to get a cold month, what we have to do is strengthen this area of high pressure to the north, and we need to push it sort of in that direction, and then take this trough and centre it to the east somewhere over here. And if we did that, then we would open the door to the north. But as it is, we're not doing that. We just have the trough to the west, southwest of us, so we're still keeping an Atlantic influence. We've been very unlucky all winter in terms of cold weather. Getting cold weather just hasn't lined up quite right. Been very close very often. I'm sure you remember back at the end of December and then again in January, we came really, really close to a couple of big freezes this winter, but things just didn't quite work out correctly. They didn't line up quite right, and again we see that in March, that we haven't got the right scenario very close to it, just haven't got the right scenario with the CFS V2 forecast there. So consequently, we end up with really quite a mild month, a warm month coming up across most parts of Europe. Temperature anomalies very significantly above average from the west over to the east. The highest anomaly to average is over towards Eastern Europe and Western Russia, but all places coming out with a significantly mild average month. That could be a little bit over the top, especially for northeastern parts of Europe, but overall, based on what the pressure distribution is doing, the height anomaly, you would suspect that is probably going to be fairly close. The precipitation anomaly looking like this. Another fairly unsettled month coming up, particularly for southern parts of England and France. It's a little bit drier for Scotland and Norway, and also over into the eastern part of Europe. But of course, with the low pressure being centred out to the west-southwest of us, and low pressure centred around here, with jet stream coming up like that, you would expect southern parts, and particularly France as well, to be quite unsettled. Quite a lot of rain coming through there. It's drier up here because that's where the high pressure is. We'll be trying to bring in sort of northeasterly winds, but they'd be passing more to the north of the British Isles, if anything. So an unsettled but a mild month being signalled from the CFS. What about Beijing Climate Centre? These are 500 millibar height anomalies broken down into 10-day periods. The first 10-day period takes us from the 1st through the 10th of March. Again, very similar to what the CFS is doing for the monthly anomaly. This one has that area of above average heights, the ridge up to the north of us, and then the trough is underneath it, so it's very close to producing cold weather, but the trough is centred to our west, which means the flow keeps in from an easterly direction, from a westerly direction, and those easterlies associated with that blocking feature there passing to the north of the British Isles. So it's unsettled but mild there for the first 10 days. Then the middle 10 days of March looks like this. It's taking us from the 11th through to the 20th. And again, very similar. The low pressure, the trough is out to the west. We have got above average heights to our north, but they're not doing much for us. And again, the flow is going rather like that. So probably a little bit less unsettled. Heights are a little bit higher, but still mild there. And then we go through to the final 10 days, which takes us from the 21st through to the 30th of March. Low pressure is in the Atlantic. Looks like the ridge is strengthening around the Azores, and this is just westerly again. So quite an unsettled March is being signalled here by these models, but all the time the weather's coming in from the Atlantic, so all the time it's looking fairly mild. If we have a look at the height anomaly for the month, this is taking us from the 1st through to the 30th of March. We find we've got a trough in the Atlantic, we've got a ridge up to the north, very, very similar to what CFS is seeing, and the flow is coming in of the Atlantic. The temperature anomaly, therefore, for March is coming out significantly milder than average, and the precipitation anomaly is coming out significantly wetter than average. So a mild and wet March is being signalled by these models, and I think they're probably fairly close. Certainly for the first half of the month, I think we're going to have significantly wet weather in the first 10 days or so. Excuse me, and fairly mild weather coming up next week. Starting off a little bit on the colder side, but it is going to turn milder through the course of next week. So I think the first half of March probably wetter and milder than average. I would suspect around the middle of the month we might get a bit of a cold snap, but I doubt it'll last all that long. And then I would be surprised if these very wet conditions were to persist into the second half of the month. So what I suspect will happen is that the second half of March will start to break out of this unsettled weather and will turn drier. Now, whether we turn drier and colder, or potentially we might turn drier and warmer and get a spell of really very mild and dry weather in the latter stages of the month. I think that's highly uncertain. But overall, I think we come out with a milder than average March, so temperatures around a degree, maybe more above average, and precipitation, I think it will be a little bit above average, but it'll be wetter in the first half and then drier in the second half. So essentially agreeing with the models, although I think the second half of the month probably does change a bit. I don't think we'll carry on with this pattern all the way through. Finally, having a look at the 700 millibar height anomaly for April. This is what we're looking at in April from the CFS V2. We've got quite a bit of blocking there, above average heights to our north, and then not much else going on. So that could either be bringing down easterly, northeasterly winds, although if there is a trough in the Atlantic, if I can just get rid of that, there's a trough down here, then what we're going to do is we'll still be bringing up the air from the southwest. So that's very difficult, very complicated. pattern, I think we'll leave April alone. Essentially, there could be some colder weather in there with that level of above average heights to our north, but it would again depend on where the trough is in relation to the ridge. Coming back to March, I think we're looking at a milder than average month. Again, another milder than average month. The long run of generally mild weather continues. And for precipitation, I think it's going to be a little bit above average. So following on from February, really with a more unsettled month. The first half of the month is wetter. The second half, I would suspect, turns drier. That could be drier and colder, or it could be drier and very mild. I'm very uncertain about what happens in the latter stages of the month. Right, that's all for now. Thanks for watching. Come back later on for the 10-day look ahead. That's all for now. Thanks for watching.